what's up, everyone? I'm Brandon Birkmeyer, and I believe that building brands that matter is the only way for a business to thrive tomorrow. And today we're talking about the business of agencies. Excited that I'm part of this summit and joining these amazing speakers on this virtual adventure with you guys to talk about how we can provide value for the agency owners out there, the social media managers, the teams at the ad exec level that are figuring out how do we get more clients, how do we grow our business, how do we hold on to the clients we have and be that agency that can actually succeed, because we all know it's really competitive out there. There's a lot of agencies popping up every day and it's hard to stand out from all the noise. So my idea today, and it's the same thing I talk about every week on my podcast, is if you want to build a business that thrives, or an agency that thrives in this case, you need to build a brand that matters. Now, we're all in advertising, we're all in marketing, so this should be an obvious answer for you. But today we're going to talk about how to do that through the power of podcasting to establish your agency as an authority in their vertical, in their industry, for the clients that they work for, and in advertising in general. I believe in podcasting. It's been a big part of my life. And that's what we're here to talk about today, how you can leverage podcasting for your agency. So a little background on me. Again, Brandon Birkmeyer, and started a company called Brandon Brands. But basically, 17 years, I was doing what you guys were doing, which was working at ad agencies for some of the biggest brands out there, Fortune 100 companies, including Apple, Walmart, Coca-Cola, which was awesome, Wells Fargo, to name a few. And doing 17 years on anything is a long time. I did it straight out of college. And in doing that, I learned a lot of the ropes, anything from how to do the work to pitching business and winning it and holding it and running accounts and all that. My position was in the media planning field, also known as brand strategy. And it was a lot of fun, a lot of work, but as you guys know, holding on to accounts can be tough. And one of the things that I know is true, and as much as we all like to think that we do everything we can, we are notorious as agencies for being the company that's great at telling other people what to do for their advertising, but not actually investing in our own brand, in building our own brands through our thought leadership, through work that we put out to the advertising community, through our relationships, and through investing in our people. So there are some agencies, obviously, that are exception that are doing that. But to me, that's definitely something that I think a lot of us would raise our hand and say, yeah, that's true for us too. So without branding, and this is true for your clients, I'm sure you guys have said this to them, without branding, you are beholden to being a commodity, which means that your value is the same as everyone else's, and it becomes a race to the bottom in terms of price. Now, we all know that agency margins are pretty thin, so being able to establish yourself as someone who can charge a premium, choose the clients that they want, and actually help figure out like what clients you're going to take versus not take, and how to keep those clients that you have for long-term relationships. That's the golden ticket, right? So I think podcasting can help you do that. I know that may sound silly at first. You're like, why podcasting? There's a million other things we could be doing, but that's what we're going to talk about today. Before I get into that, I want to tell you a little story about how I almost lost a $100 million account. True confession, $100 million plus account, actually. Was working on it 3 or more years and was one of the best accounts I've ever worked on. Guess what? Down sales and new CMOs is pretty much a huge red flag that you're about to be reviewed as an agency. And that's what happened for my business. I'm not going to talk about which clients it was or anything like that. But essentially, if you're in any business, any agency will tell you that the first sign that you are probably going to be put up for review is that your CMO, you have a new one, because that new CMO wants to kind of change things up usually, or do something that helps improve the business. And that is one of the tools they have at their disposal. So I'm not telling you guys anything new here, but that was what was happening with us. And the odd thing about that is the average tenure of a CMO is around 3 years is the last number I saw. And that means a lot of us are going to be in that position at some point very soon. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you, but the things that I learned in that process, because we did try to try to pitch the business and keep it and go through all that process, which put a lot of energy into the business, which was awesome. We really rallied together as an agency. We brought people in from New York, and we all, like the leading minds in the company, were there to bring forth their best ideas. And I guess what I need to admit to you is I didn't almost lose a $100 million account. We lost it. It was gone. And it was a huge blow to the agency. Lots of jobs lost. You can have the best pitch, but sometimes if you're already in the point of being reviewed, you've lost your chance. Most agency reviews don't go back to the person that has them. So I want to give to you some tools that help you keep the clients you have and also earn clients without actually having to pitch for them. So I don't think it's too late for you guys to start that. I think it's great for anyone to get out there and start building themselves as a brand. But some of the lessons I learned from that was that, one, we were a little too late to establish ourselves as a brand in the client's eyes. We'd been there forever. We were the legacy company, but starting to establish ourselves and build that credibility beyond our relationship, it's too late if you're already losing the business. So definitely we're too late to that. The current team's needs from the day-to-day working with the client weren't being met. And what I mean by that is there is an expectation of being given the best. And we brought the best during the pitch, but getting what the client's expecting on a day-to-day is sometimes difficult. So what I want to share with you is this idea of being the authority in your industry. So this is a difficult one, but the number one rule to winning a pitch and getting the sale and closing a lead, one of the main steps in that is establishing authority and being the one that people look up to as the de facto leader in the space. And in an agency context, that means that you are the one that is on top of the trends. You are in demand and you are leading the way. And not just the people that are at the top of the company, but the people running the business need to have that authority as well. And I think that's where we lose ground sometimes, is that everyone wants the attention of the top 2 people in the company, top 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. And not every account is going to have that kind of attention. And when those accounts want that thought leadership, which is at the top, but only shows up for pitches or once a year for a certain meeting, suddenly you're not getting that same impact, and that client's not feeling like you are something that they have to have in their business. So now I want to start pivoting here towards what this talks about, which is podcasting, because in this scenario that we're talking about establishing yourself as the authority, which there's a whole other topic just on that we could get into. But in that vein, you have to establish yourselves not just as the authority, but as the guide. And what that means is that you are working to make the client a hero. And we want to show you guys this. This is Flip the Script. Oren Claff, he's one of the guys I had interviewed on the podcast. And he wrote the book Pitch Anything, which is, if you haven't bought it, you're the last person on earth to not have bought in that book. But his new book, Pitch Anything, talks about the idea of selling without selling and inception. And that is essentially what we have to do as an agency every day, is figure out how do you go about letting the clients know that you are the valuable brand, that you are the valuable partner, and not just a commodity that can be replaced. So now this idea of being the guide and not the hero is essentially basically shifting your mindset to saying, how can I be the thought leader in this environment that doesn't just show great ideas, but to my client, but also to the industry as a whole, that people look up to and say, that's the brand that I have to be. And that status alignment that we're talking about comes from building your brand and your personality and sharing that thought leadership. And one of the great places to do that is to have your own brand platform. Now, a lot of us put out ebooks and papers, or maybe write a blog, but having your own platform and thinking of yourself as a media company essentially is that next step. And that's why I'm so passionate about podcasting. Okay. So podcasting for me has already changed my life. I mean, 4 of the speakers in this virtual summit have been guests on the podcast. It's the reason I'm here speaking today. The difference between me being there working at an agency and me being here talking to you about how to build your agency is that I had a podcast, that I've gone out there, established my voice as an authority, have talked to some of the top leaders in marketing in the world, all because I gave myself a platform to do that on, and had done the work to network and bring the right people into my world that I could have these conversations. Now, picking that platform, because there's a lot of choices out there, usually have either the video choice, audio, or written, right? And blogs were the thing back in the day. And now everyone's talking about video. But I'd like to propose that podcasting is the first thing you should do. And I'll start with why. So, or maybe why not the other things? Okay. So video is the one that's like, okay, most impactful. We all agree on that. That's the thing to do. But not every agency out there, let's be honest, can build an in-agency studio that is run like a professional media company. The right lighting, the right seats, all the different staff you need, from the sound engineers to the cameramen to the host, and bringing in the talent. That's a major investment. And it's just not something that's the reality for 90% of the agencies out there. So that to me is off the list. Now, when you think about, the opposite end, which is blogging, I think a lot of people can put out blogs, write articles, and it's a massive value to your company. But at the end of the day, it's not what's going to set you apart, because the thought leadership piece doesn't only come from you writing an interesting how-to article. You actually have to get out there and have conversations. And one of the interviews I did was with John Lee Dumas, and I asked him, why is it so valuable to have another person you bring in to this conversation? And what he said, and he has a top podcast for entrepreneurs, if you're not sure who he is, it's called Entrepreneurs on Fire. Check it out. But the reason he said it's such an interesting dynamic, and why having someone else involved in the conversation, is because the world is a collision of ideas. The world is a collision of objectives and values and communication. And in bringing those things together, you get new things that come from it that you wouldn't have expected from before that. So in that dynamic, not only are you generating new ideas and conversation and thought leadership, you're having a dialogue with people that are also leaders in the industry. And that association that comes from being in the room with that person is what starts to build your value as a brand. So, and you can decide who those people are that you think you should be interviewing. It could be the leaders in the marketing space, like I have on my show. It could be the thought leaders in your industry that you're serving. So if you have a lot of restaurant clients, or you have some auto dealership clients, you could talk to the people that are running those businesses, or that are leading the way in terms of thought leadership for those businesses, retired CMOs of, like the car dealerships, or whatever the thing is. You can find those people. Or you can interview clients. You could be talking to marketing executives and CMOs about their business, and bring them into the conversation and highlight them as also interesting minds in the space. And when you start to do that, when you start to develop that network and that communication, you're building thought leadership material that supports your brand. So I found that critically valuable. And what's interesting is it doesn't have to be the leader of the agency, the figurehead of the agency. It can be, but it can also be the account leads that maybe rotate in or develop different podcasts or whatever it is, but they all have to be founded in what the agency is about and the agency's values. And if they're doing that, that builds your voice and theirs at the same time, so that they don't say, well, I hired this agency for the number one guy in the agency. No, they know that that person has created the value system, but they want the thought leadership that's coming from the people that are actually on their account. And if you set them up to be the leads that are creating the content and having the conversations, now you're building a community of people that are supporting the thought leadership of this agency, not just the figurehead. And that's the kind of thing that, yes, you are going to lose people over time, but you can continue to fill that system if the podcast is branded to the agency and not to the person. So number 1 and 2 basically is that it's easier to do than these other 2 mediums, but also that the interview component of it works more naturally there. And I know live, just to throw it out there, live is the other thing that's really hot and trending right now, doing a live video. But the thing about live is great for interviews, except that you get distracted by having to talk to and engage with the people that are viewing, because the number one customer in that experience is the viewer, is the person interacting, and they want to engage and they want to be part of that thoughtful conversation. And that's hard to do when you are trying to do an interview and get the best out of your guest as opposed to just engage with the audience. And it doesn't translate when you're trying to turn that into other content. You're trying to post that as a podcast. It's distracting because that person listening later is not able to interact and engage. So creating content that actually can work in the environment that it's meant for and then be redistributed is the goal. Now, I would argue that podcasts is the fastest, easiest, cheapest, and most effective way to do that. And the reason is, when you record a podcast, it is very little setup. It's a microphone, it's a camera back there, maybe a ring light, and your laptop, and maybe some headphones. And at the end of the day, that's not even $100 really to do that. And the training it takes is really just practice over time. And then it's getting guests, which that is the normal hustle regardless of what you use. But getting set up, literally anyone can do it. And then on top of that, getting that distributed and pushed out is also really easy these days. You don't need a fancy studio. You don't have to have a thoughtful piece that you've done, 100 hours of research on to then distribute as a publication. You can still do those things, but this is natural conversation. You set people up, you have a phone call, you bring them on and you talk to them. What's great about podcasts too, is you're now not making the guest nervous about the video quality and what they're bringing to the table, how they look and all that stuff. They just have to have earbuds, show up whenever makes sense for them, is convenient on their schedule. And because of that convenience and that less pressure to be perfect on camera, you're able to work with them and have a great dialogue. And you can tell them, hey, guess what? This is recorded, not live. So if something happens that you don't like in the interview, I can take it out. Like, that's editable. So all of that is part of the dynamics that make podcasting so interesting. And not only is it natural and awesome content in the moment, it also is the one of the catalysts for inspiring new content that you can create later. So think about this. When you create a podcast, you have a great conversation. Maybe the theme that week is blogging. Maybe you're like, this is how you write a blog for your CPG product business. And then as you're teaching that and having a conversation with the top blogger out there, it inspires some ideas that you can then follow up with and say, you know what I really want to do is dive in on one of these topics and write a blog piece on that, on top of extracting the conversation and making that a blog on top of it. So the podcast easily translates into blog ideas, blog content, and also lead magnets if you wanted to. If you want to know more about how to do this and get to know our agency, download our PDF and give us your email. Obviously that's how that works. So blogs, you can do that. You can extract some of the video, make clips that make sense for different environments, edit them and send them out. You can also repurpose to shorter bits of social posts, images, headers, themes from that talk, and turn it into one-liners, sentences, quotes, or just descriptions, thoughtful descriptions that you can also post to social media. So lots of repurposed content can come from this hub, but it is the catalyst that you can start with. It's a lot easier than the other formats. It doesn't take as much setup, as much background and investment, and it can get you moving as quickly as possible. And that's what I think is the difference between, getting started and not getting started, is removing the friction, removing the barriers to entry. And podcasting does that. So there's no reason any and every agency out there shouldn't have a podcast that helps build their brand and their business. And the best part is, as an agency leader, you can just delegate and say, this is you. I'd love you to take this on. And it's actually pretty fun to do. Or as someone who's in the agency representing and being leadership, you can take the initiative, maybe record a couple shows and tell them, this is what I'm thinking. Can I do this for you guys? And that content can then turn into community. And you have fans of the show, you have people that listen, that you can bring into a Facebook group or other places, live meetups. And you can start to build this community of marketers that want to hear what you have to say. And when you start to develop community and demand through your content, suddenly you are the authority, and you have people that are like, I want to work with that guy. I want to know what they have, and I want to be doing what they're doing. And when you have that kind of demand, you can then choose the clients you want to work with and set the tone for the conversation. One of the things also that I learned from Oren Klaff, that amazing guy who wrote Flip the Script and Pitch Anything, is that we only want things, number one, that we only value things that we pay for. But number two, we chase things that run away from us. So if you are a client that, or if you're an agency that is not afraid of losing clients, and you can say in the room, you know what, this pitch is two ways. I know we're here to show you what we have, and I know we're going to bring that and deliver on that. But you as a client, we can only take on X amount of clients at a given time. And we are looking for the right client that's going to be with us for the next 5 or more years. So we take this very seriously, and our values need to be in alignment. And when you can do that, and you can back that up with the authority in your business through what you built through podcasts and the networking and the influence, then you have a special something that the other agencies don't have. It's not your case studies. It's not your pitch team that has been practicing all weekend, and it's not their normal job. It's none of that. It's not how you answered the questions. It's not the experience you have on other clients that can contribute to this. It really is that you go into the meeting already having that predetermined clout and predetermined authority that sets you apart from the other agencies in the room. And that, my friends, is priceless. And to bring you down to the individual level, I want you guys to continue to get to know me better. Brandon Birkmeyer, also known as Brandon's Brands. What I want you guys to think about is this. My buddy Travis Chappell, who's got an amazing business podcast, talks about this a lot. He says, the difference between, I don't know if he picked it up, by the way, if it's his originally or not, it doesn't matter. The difference between, a guy that you meet in the audience, where you go to an event and you're having a conversation, you meet them, you're like, oh, that was fun. That was nice. But you're like, but the speaker's about to go on. So nice talking to you. Bye. And say that person you're talking to says, okay, bye, leaves, gets on stage and then gives a talk. And now there's a line of people waiting to talk to him, and you can't get a minute in edgewise because now they're busy. The difference between who they were before the stage and after is the stage. They have a platform that gives them authority, that they can now talk to an audience, speak their piece. And that the difference, they're the same person. The difference is the platform they built, the authority they generated because they had something to say. They had a place to say it. And that's the difference between where I was with you guys and where I am now. Is literally the only reason I'm back here instead of watching and I'm talking to you and trying to give advice is that I took this step to build a platform, to meet these amazing people that are teaching you guys today, and to invest in myself and in the growth of my brand as opposed to the business. And when you can build a brand that matters, the business builds itself. So in your own way, you are selling without selling. You are building a brand that for you will generate the authority you need, will keep clients in your office and bring the new clients to you instead of you chasing them down. And wouldn't it be great if when that CMO changes over and you have the question showing up in their organization of what's the problem, what's going on, they never question that agency. We're like, we have the best in the business. It's obviously not that. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's the economy. Maybe it's the creative. Maybe we need to have a little more patience and give this some time. Maybe we need to try something new. Maybe all those things will happen because you are no longer in question, because they know they have the best, because they see that you are putting that time in, you're building the authority, and they no longer question that you are the leader in the room. I hope that helps you guys today. There's so much great content for you guys on this summit. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. I hope you found value in it. If you're ever looking for me, I'm at brandonbrands.com. It's Brandon. I try to say it multiple times so you remember it. Brandon at brandonbrands.com. You can always check me out, follow me. The podcast is Brands on Brands on Brands. And I'd love to keep on working with you guys and telling you what to do. I also help agencies and other people build podcasts. If you need some coaching on that, I'm happy to help. Check me out, reach out to me. I'm there for you guys. Enjoy the summit. I'll catch you guys next time.